How's it going, everyone? We have a guest with us today. Our guest is Shawn. How are you?
I'm great today this morning. Loving it.
Awesome. Glad to hear that. So, how long have you been practicing for?
I'm one of the long termers. So I got 3 decades under my belt.
All right.
Yeah.
And what
Uh,
got you interested in the first place?
I, you know, it might be a common story for many of us, but when I was a younger kid, teenage years,
Hmm.
the world stopped making sense, right after high school. And at least for my story, I started noticing things that I thought I was like making these connections between things. I started to think people were actual demons.
Hmm.
And I started to think people had ulterior motives. Basically, it's like paranoia kind of type of
Okay.
situations, but you're not always wrong.
That's the truth. Yeah, some people are a little more akin to a demon than a human or an angel. I definitely agree with that.
Yeah.
And
So,
go ahead, go ahead.
I was saying, so to put that in context, I grew up in a very normal suburban life, so there was no creepy people around me. Everyone was pretty straight, suburban type. So I started stepping out of bounds a little bit
Mhm.
and meeting some freaky people, and they kind of took a liking to me, I guess. And you know, I kind of mentioned it in the pre-interview a little bit, but
Mhm. So it was more about your perspective of things than in retrospect than how people were actually treating you then it seems like.
yeah, I was always a loner type stereotype of kid, no friends in school, and um, it is what it is. I now as an adult understand that more. Um, but to tie this all into like how we're going with the occult and the esoteric stuff, I was having lunch with a friend one time, and I asked him, I'm like, I was telling him some of my stories, like, hey man, do you think demons are real? Like, I was watching, and remember telling him, like, I was watching the news, and it seems like the newscasters, the way they deliver the news is like they're trying to please Satan, and like, by the way, like the bad news is what they seem to really, and like when you're a kid, I probably thought it was real back then. I no longer do. And he goes, Shawn, have you ever heard of the Freemasons? They and I of course I hadn't. And he goes, they can actually communicate without talking and secretly. And I was kind of like, so he told me that and somewhat of a vulnerable state. And so I like took that literally, and I got every book I could find on them. And I was like, this is insane. I never heard of this thing, right?
Uh-huh.
Um, it sounds funny to say these days because back then there wasn't an internet. I mean, there
Hmm.
was AOL, but like there wasn't like you couldn't just Google the Illuminati.
Sure.
So I had to go to like my college bookstore and like library and like read entire books just to gather like a couple of nooks and crannies about this mysterious organization that ruled the world. And so of course I decided I wanted to join this organization.
Naturally. Sure.
I was like, well, this is a natural fit for me. I am Pinky in the brain, whatever.
Awesome.
So, if anybody doesn't know, I so I became an actual Freemason. So I don't want to throw cold water on anybody's like how it happens, but I could, I'm no longer a Mason, so it's okay if I say things. I'm not going to reveal any like major violations of an oath or just
Darn.
respect. But if you ask the right question,
I see.
um, so the way I joined is you actually are it's you have to ask to become a Mason, right?
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
I went to the lodge and I literally said, hey, I'm interested in becoming a Freemason. And I was 21 at the time, and
Mhm.
they were stoked to see this young kid showing up at my lodge at the time.
Mhm.
So I got an application, I filled it out, a week or so, maybe a few weeks. They called me back and I had 3 interviews. Um, long story short, I remained a Mason for like several years, and I was all in, man. I thought this was the greatest thing. Rose through the order, 32nd degrees, kind of like when I stepped out.
Mhm.
Um, but then there's like something missing, um, for where I am now. Like their cult practice is more of like a Golden Dawn-ish, Wicca-ish, Thelemic-ish, a lot of
Okay.
magic, a lot of tarot and astrology and divination and ritual.
Interesting.
The Masons don't really have that.
Hmm.
There's a, you know, so I was like, I joined the Freemasons thinking it would be more like the Golden Dawn, which I
Sure.
had never heard of.
Hmm.
And it's later years down the road, I was like, oh, that's why I was like not wanting to like be in a lodge with old dudes drinking coffee and eating coffee cake. And I would like try to be like, hey, have any of you guys read Albert Pike's Morals and Dogma? And they'd be like, nah, man, we don't read that crap.
Wow.
And it's kind of like, you're like, what the, what?
That's what
So
this is
you
all
feel
about,
like,
I thought. Yeah.
right. And so of course, there's a few people in there that are like all into it, study, write books. One of
Mhm.
my people I introduced to the Masons joined. He's got a book. No, he's got 3 or 4 books now, actually. Um, you could look him up. Freemasonry for Dummies. He wrote that.
That
And
sounds familiar, actually.
yeah,
Hmm.
um, I'll try to not use any names, but I'll probably mention some things. And if
That's
people want
okay.
to dive in, but I mentioned the forward of the books, not the Dummies one, but some of his other books,
Mhm.
thanking him for joining. But even he now has left kind of like his involvement for similar reasons. He's
Mhm.
studying the Sephiroth and astro correspondences and reading about, where a lot of us start with the Aleister Crowley stuff. And
Mhm.
the same thing, he goes to the brothers and then they're like, yeah, so we're going to do a fundraiser next week at the parade, blah, blah, blah. And like, it's just,
It's more of
and they
like
want,
the what do they call those like golf clubs? Like where the people get together like a what do they call it? It's just like a more of a social club than an actual like practicing like coven or magical fraternity, it seems like.
yeah, it's kind of disappointing,
Mhm.
So whatever. I don't like have any hard feelings or anything, but like it is kind of funny to read stuff online and be like, oh no, man, but you weren't told the real secrets. They only let certain people know the real. And I was like, man, I was I don't want to say as high as you can go. There would be one more level above. And um if they were holding out, they were holding out, man. They were really holding out. So
Yeah, so it's
uh,
like once you get to the 33rd degree, that's like the Scottish rite, correct?
yes,
Okay.
yes.
I barely know anything about that stuff, but that is one thing that I have read or heard. Is like you sort of move into another organization at that point or something like that.
That's right. Yeah. So your first 3 degrees are what's called the Blue Lodge of
Okay.
Masonry. Then to go any degrees higher than 3, you can either go the York Rite, which is where you get a lot of Knights Templar connections and
Uh-huh.
Royal Arch type of things. And I went the Scottish Rite direction, which is where that 33rd degree thing comes from. That's a
Sure.
Scottish Rite path. So I went to 32 degree. The 33rd degree is not one you can ask to be, it's conferred upon you.
I see.
Just interesting. So when
Hmm.
you see presidents that were 33rd degree Masons and a lot of Supreme Court judges, that was given to them. They didn't
Hmm.
necessarily do all the memory work to climb the ladder that like I
I
did,
see.
perhaps.
Okay.
Um,
So it's not a prerequisite that you're a 32nd degree to be conferred the 33rd degree then?
it used to be more strict. So
Okay.
now at least the last of my understanding, you got to at least be a Mason to begin with. So you got to become a Master Mason, which is the 3rd degree,
Mhm.
which is still probably that's a really cool degree. Like, um, but then it becomes like a Grand Lodge Master can kind of confer upon you, like there's a saying like make you a Mason at sight kind of thing.
Okay, that sounds
Um,
familiar from other traditions.
yeah, and so like whatever, but it's not like they had all these secret aliens in a back room and like
Sure.
the magic bullet from JFK in this other room, and it's like, oh wait, but let me get your ID. Oh, you're not a 33rd, you can't see that yet. Like, but I had seen some cool stuff, and I experienced some really like real world, really good brothers. and traveling abroad, like in Scotland, I knocked on a door of a lodge three
Okay.
times, and the guy opened the door and he's like, "Who are you?" And I was like, "I'm a traveler." Blah 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 blah. And there's a whole like,
Uh-huh. The
you can
spiel.
Google this stuff. You can Google the spiel, and if anyone really wants to Google the spiel, and he goes, "From whence to weather," and I go, "From west to east," and there's a whole other, and
Hmm.
so it's kind of like, "All right, come on in," right? And they basically gave me a private tour of this ancient lodge in Scotland,
Wow.
and like in their lodge room, they had Knights Templar banners, swords, shields, and all the regalia, and it was super
That's
cool,
cool.
man. It was
Yeah.
super cool.
I don't know if you know who Lon Milo Duquette is. You probably do.
Oh
Um,
yeah, I watch his videos almost every day.
awesome. Yeah,
He's got a daily thing he's doing.
yeah, I know there's he posts on Facebook and then there's a YouTube channel that sort of transfers his videos. It's like Arcanum University or something like that. But yeah,
Yeah.
he has described, and I think the key to Solomon's key, some of the designs inside some of the lodges, and they sound absolutely beautiful from what I've heard.
Yeah, that's one of the it's really cool how universal
Mm,
the organization is as far as like when you're in a lodge, they're all the same. There's a tiled floor, there's two pillars, just
right.
like the tree of life. They're
Hmm.
actually called Jachin and Boaz,
Hmm.
J and B, just like the tree of life.
Hmm.
But what's interesting, at least in the first 3 degrees, they don't I never heard the Sephiroth spoke about them at all, which is really like, and so like you start to go like, wait a minute. So is there a lot of stuff they're teaching without really revealing,
Uh-huh.
or is like it's for you to discover or whatever?
That's kind of how it always seemed to me, was the symbolism and the layout of the temples was the teachings, and those that were, I don't want to say astute enough, but those who were observant enough, and the nature of maybe as above, so below, as within, so without, the Hermetic teachings. It
Yes.
seemed like they were sort of leading you into your own studies, from what I could tell. Like I said, I know nothing about Freemasonry, but I've heard others speak about it, and it seems like it was mostly symbolic teachings, to sort of program the subconscious and the unconscious mind. um, yeah, so I think that's very interesting way to teach, especially these days. It's almost like the nature of consciousness itself is changing, so things need to be taught a little bit differently than they used to be, but that's speculation, of
Yes.
course.
Um, like in hindsight, like when I go back and I reread the literature I was given, or like even like some of the main, like especially for American Masons, Albert Pike is like,
Hmm.
he would be like the Israel Regardi, I guess,
Hmm.
not the
Okay.
one who invented everything, but the one who kind of was like found a way to make it more,
Or mainly P. Hall, perhaps. Yeah,
give you something more to sink in. Yeah. And Manly P. Hall, he was also a
I
Freemason. So
love
a
mainly
lot
P.
of um, it's just a strange thing,
Hall. Certainly.
um, like so, like I had a really good time, but then it was like started getting older.
Hmm.
I moved away from that town, and I needed something like meatier, and
Yeah, yeah.
Freemasonry is, for lack of a better word, it's very clean, it's very light, it's very white light.
Hmm.
I know the internet says that we worship like, or they worship Lucifer. Yeah, he's mentioned.
Hmm.
So is Prometheus,
Right, exactly.
and once you learn your lore and Lucifer and Prometheus, and there's these repetitive mythologies, and
Hmm.
um I don't know. I get in a lot of trouble online. I used to kind of poke the bear. You'd see people going, they'd do a post about Freemasonry and like, I saw Jay-Z doing this or whatever.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And then
So
I'd be like, yeah, whatever. I'd be like, actual Mason here. That's BS. And they would be like, get out of here, kid. We're trying to have a discussion. And I'm like, all right,
man, that's
whatever.
that's interesting. So, can you tell us a little bit about what the interview process was like? Maybe not the questions maybe that they asked you, but what was it like, multiple people interviewing like you, or was it like one and then another and then another?
So they do, at least the way my state does it. Every state might have a variation of the rules. It was, I
Mhm.
got three different people that had my application in front of them, three different locations, so one person at a time. And they basically called me and said, "Hey, this is Philip. Got your application here. You want to go meet at the coffee shop?" And whatever. And literally went, met him at a coffee shop. And it's kind of like a vetting, you
Yeah,
know.
for
They
sure.
weren't asking for like my bank balance or credit history. They might have run my ID to make sure I wasn't like a criminal. I don't
Violent
recall.
felon, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, but wouldn't you want them to, in a way?
Yeah, you would think, yeah.
You know, they kind of like, um, but it was all above board. Like the one person who interviewed me was a police officer, and he was super cool.
Okay.
And just the way the world is so weird.
Mhm.
The second person to interview me goes, "Do you know um, my uncle's name redacted?" And I go, "Yeah, that's my uncle." And he goes, "Your name came up at a we were playing golf last weekend, and we said we have this new person coming to our lodge, and this is his name." And my uncle said, "That's my nephew."
Wow.
So like I
Secret's
did not
out.
even know. I did not even know my uncle was a Freemason. So it was pretty funny.
That's interesting. Hopefully you didn't mind that he knew that you were applying.
Unknown to me, he was at the time the worshipful master of the lodge,
Wow, okay.
which is hilarious. So like I do, you know, yeah, I passed the they do have an election in the lodge on a regular meeting, and it's where the term blackball comes from.
Uh-huh.
Everyone is given you're given a black ball and a white ball, right? And so it's a somewhat secret ballot, and they this person, Shawn, la da da, good member in good standing. Do we agree to approve him for membership? And I'm not there, obviously. And so you all walk to this little box in the front of the lodge, and you drop in either a white ball or a black ball.
Mhm.
And if they open it up and there's a black ball, guess what? You're blackballed. You don't
Yeah,
get in.
that makes sense. I love a lot of the terms like on the level.
Yes.
There's such beautiful symbolism in the terms, and they really do go under most people's radar a lot of the time.
Yeah. That's, you know, and that's with the way my mind is like wired for correspondences. That's where I'm at
Yes.
now, is these systems. And like, I'm a very like pattern thinker. And
Mhm. Yes.
um, I learned about who I am in reverse. You know, I'm an adopted kid. So there's,
Hmm.
you kind of discover like every doctor's appointment, even until now, it's like, "Do you have any history of this in your family?" And I have to say, I literally have no idea.
Right.
Um, it's kind of fun.
So
So they're like,
did that sense of being adopted sort of like amplify your quest for self-knowledge and self-understanding? I can imagine that it would.
I think being, I think it, well, there's a lot there.
Okay, sure.
Not to make it a therapy session, but there's a lot there that happens when I was adopted just before I was 2 years old. And when a child is separated from a parent at that age, it's a bad scene.
Mhm.
Um, if you lose your parent when you're 10 years old, you can kind of still
Right.
form these connections. But at the age I lost my mother, um, that ability to bond and emotionally connect with people was just chopped.
Right.
Uh, and so it never came back. Still hasn't come back. And then you throw a little autism in the mix, and that, and introversion, and then just thinking there's actual demons walking around the earth when you're 20 years old.
Yeah. I I can't imagine. I mean, yeah, so when you mentioned earlier that they sort of put you through this vetting process. That is certainly common in a lot of orders and lodges. And I think it's interesting how the processes are all sort of similar. Have there been any other orders that you have looked into joining since then, or are you sort of like just doing your own thing at this point?
Well, if I was able to find like a Golden Dawn Lodge, I would probably join.
Mhm.
There's a OTO lodge fairly close to me, 20-minute drive. Um, but right as I was ready to go witness a Gnostic mass that they were doing, like for everyone can come by and
Mhm.
join,
Yeah.
the pandemic showed up, and it was just like, right.
Mhm.
So then here comes 3 years of you're not joining nothing. You're just sitting around the house with this bookshelf of old musty books about witchcraft, or, you know, um, I don't want to say we all have the same books, but we probably all have a lot of books in common. You
Mhm.
know, the Black Brick. I have the
Yeah.
Satanic Bible,
Uh-huh.
777,
Yeah. Yep, the classics.
Manly P. Hall's,
Yeah.
tome.
The secret teachings of all ages.
Yeah, Lon Milo Duquette books. I'm looking at them right now. Just
Hmm.
they're all there, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I
But
love
like,
you. Go ahead, please.
uh, but like, it's, I don't want to speak for everyone, but I think a lot of us, we have to find it on our own. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
very few of us are probably raised in a family of, let's say, like Thelemite mother and fathers, and they're raising you to, like, it doesn't, I don't think it really happens.
No,
So
I
you have to, we
go
all
ahead.
had our own journey how we find it, I'm sure
Yeah.
you do too.
Yeah, absolutely. It's almost like the passion of being a part of something like that. It like pushes the children away when they reach that like teenage, like rebellious like stage, and they don't want anything to do with what their parents did. So it's like the more of a thelemic or like Golden Dawn or Masonic influence like the parents have on the child, it's almost like the child gets a lot of it as they're raised, if that makes sense. They're instilling those teachings into the kid, and so the kid either says, yeah, I got it already, I don't need any more of that, or they say, that's old people stuff, I don't want any part of that. Little do they know that
Right.
those seeds are planted at every, facet of our society, and you really can't avoid it. It's everywhere. So you have a YouTube channel, which is actually how I came across
Oh
you.
yeah, 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 yeah.
And I love, I don't even know how to describe it. You use a lot of math and a lot of, like, I think I saw one video where you were like, it was almost like you were dropping, what's in my mind is that you were dropping dominoes on like the strings of a piano or something like that, or dice or something.
Yeah, that's a good introduction. The one of the hardest things I do with this channel, um, it's it's an ambient music channel,
Yes.
but I've been a musician since I was a child, essentially, and we can get into that later. But I wanted to make music that was, um, it had something behind it that I was no longer the one writing the music.
Yes.
Kind of a version of like automatic writing, but not
Mhm.
that level. So, for an example, I think I got maybe close to 70 videos up now,
Mhm.
and every single one of them is different. They're all just,
Yeah.
I sit around the house and I like read something weird in a book and I go, "Oh, that's interesting. I could turn that into music."
Mhm.
So the dominoes thing is, every domino has two numbers on it, like, hope people know what a domino looks like. I don't know.
Google
And
it if you
so
don't know what a domino is.
yeah. And so they have number blank through 6 on each side. And I'm looking at my keyboard. Keys are, of course, also black and white, which
Oh
helps.
yeah.
And so this one is like, I'm glad you liked it, but I don't consider it, like, this one didn't take a lot of effort. Like, I literally thought of it one day, filmed it, and then threw a bunch of sound effects on it, like all in one day. Like, I finished the whole thing. So I would, when I turned over the domino, it would have two numbers. Let's say it's a 2 and a 3. And so on my piano, I decided which notes would represent the numbers. It
Right.
So 2 and a 3 would be these two notes. Boom. So every time you see a domino turn over, the numbers determine which two notes you're hearing in the little thing. Um, so I didn't actually. How do I even explain?
I was hoping, yeah, I was
This is
hoping
the
you could answer
biggest
that
challenge
question.
this is the biggest challenge for almost every video I've made, is like, it comes time to write the description for the video. And I'm just like, I
Sure.
don't know how to put this into words. I
You
just,
explained it very eloquently. Sorry to interrupt. It when you said that you're not the one writing the music, that's really what I loved about it was like you were allowing nature. Like I saw a lot of like Fibonacci. I saw a lot of
yes,
like the spiral staircase and things like that. I only watched maybe half a dozen of the videos, but like you said, each one was different and they all were inspired, is what I would say. They were inspired by the beauty of nature or something that had inspired you, it seems like.
yeah. I have a way to explain how I got to where I got to, because um, I was in bands since I was a kid. I played when I was like 5 years old. I was singing along to Bee Gees and Beach Boys records, and like I was playing with a tape recorder, and like I don't know.
You were mixing as like a 5 or 6 year old, basically.
I was legit like pressing pause. I still have a tape. Well, it's a, I digitized it. It's like called Little Shawn, 5 years old, and I'm doing a radio show, and I'm doing commercials, I'm playing a
Wow.
track, then I'm reading from a book about the worried walrus. It's free, but whatever. Like not nowadays, if you have a child who's doing that, they're like, all right, we're gonna take you to a doctor and figure out if my son's autistic. But every adult who realizes they're autistic later in life has the same story. Like it didn't
Right.
when I was a kid, that wasn't considered autism. Apparently it is now. So it's like I I learned later what synthesia is, and like that is when your senses are blended. So some people hear a note and they see the color red,
Okay, yeah, yeah.
or they look at an ocean wave and they feel like a type of sound.
Oh yeah.
That's more like what I have.
I
It's
can definitely relate to that. Yeah,
Do you have like do you,
smelling. Go ahead.
No, I'm curious, like what kind, because I think we all have it, but it's just how turned up it is, you know?
Yeah, it's like it's a spectrum, basically. Yeah. So I like when it comes to music, I am very sensational, like and very visual. So when I hear a note, it has a certain pattern, like in my mind's eye. And when I see a color, it produces a certain, not just that it produces a sensation, like everyone has a certain feeling when they see the color blue or the color red. It's a specific, it's almost like the colors create sigils of sensation within my body. So like the color green will like come from my throat down to my heart and then like into like my back, and the color red will like wrap around my legs and come up the back of my head. And it's just
Ooh,
it's really weird. I don't know how to explain it, but when you mentioned that, it definitely rang a bell for sure.
well, and it also makes me wonder if the early yogis, when this whole system of like the chakras, the colors,
Sure.
like what if that was just one person's interpretation of where those colors are in their being and body? It's like it's in a rainbow all the way up to about here. I think
Mm-hmm.
then it gets ultraviolet, but it's basically red, orange, yellow, right, green,
Yeah.
pinkish, green, whatnot on the heart.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but like what you're saying, so what I was getting at is like that might be your version of the chakras.
It could very well be, and I
And
honestly never thought of it that way. Please go ahead.
yeah, so like because I've tried that chakra meditation thing where you bring it up and you experience like I feel, I am,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I speak, I whatever. I talk very strange. I'm sorry, but it didn't really work for me, And I've heard people talk about those colors don't work for them, or a YouTuber was doing a thing about the Golden Dawn, and they were like, "But man, their colors suck because they're like primary. They're like red, yellow, green. There's no so." I'm like, That's a valid thing,
Hmm,
you know.
interesting. Yeah,
So
I've noticed that as well, that some people don't register with that.
I played with it. There's some videos on my channel are color correspondence
Mm-hmm.
where I've assigned pitches to certain colors and hues. And so if anyone's ever used Photoshop, you grab like the eyedropper and you click a color, boom, and it tells you what color it is. Like the hue is 127, right?
Mm-hmm.
So because I'm Shawn, I have a system that I've worked out where each one of those numbers is a note on the keyboard. So some of my color correspondence things um, is literally there's like this color is a this note, this color is a that note, and in their combinations, like it's messed up. It's a rabbit hole, man. It's really hard to explain, but I'm willing to give it a good try.
It's very interesting to me. The what's known in some traditions as the doctrine of correspondences to me is the most fascinating thing. It has allowed me to interact with my environment and my environment in more ways than I can explain. It just really makes the subtle world more tangible, being able to work with correspondences.
Yes, I feel like just looking at where you're sitting, like I see the blue up there, I see a yellow chair, like I see some green. So like depending on what system you're using, like that blue could be Jupiter.
Uh-huh.
Your chair could be the chair of strength. It's Leo,
Yeah.
there's a lot going on. Like the more, and it's a rabbit hole, man. And so um for my ambient esoterica, that's the YouTube
That's the name of
channel.
the channel, yes.
Yeah, I have um document after Google Doc after Google Doc of just ideas I haven't had time to get to yet. And
Mm-hmm.
they're kind of like what we're saying here, like, oh, I'm like looking there, all things are blue. Okay, we're gonna do a song, and we just go down this Jupiter thing, and it also will contain numbers from the tree of life that represent Jupiter, and then it's messy, man. It's really fun and it's really messy.
Yeah,
Um,
it's an endless filing cabinet. The system of Kabbalah and the Sephirot and the Klifot. I have a friend who's a visual artist. He does like illustration and stuff, and he will do very similar things. I actually interviewed him. His name's Night Growler. If you want to watch that, he does very visual things, and one of his methods that he uses is like he will create like a work of art that is like blue, and then he'll put it up on his TV screen in his living room or wherever he is, and he will just sort of hone in on that blue Jupiterian Hesidian energy, and then he will just start sketching and sort of
uh-huh.
channeling images of various deities and gods and currents that are just they're some of them are mind blowing. The amount of representations that he puts into things is crazy. So yeah, I highly recommend looking into that if that sounds familiar. But I love what you're talking about, just like honing in on those colors or those frequencies and just like becoming a part of it essentially until you understand it to a better degree.
Yeah. That honing in on those frequencies thing, what you just said there,
Mm-hmm.
that's what led me to having to relearn all the math I learned in school. I was an accelerated like math science kid. Like I took calculus in summer school for fun at ninth grade because I had nothing else to do with my life. And so, but then you stop going to school. I never got a degree in college because I kind of have a lot of just I don't want to call them behavioral problems, but it's really hard for me to sit in a classroom and
Sure.
take a class.
Mm-hmm.
So recently, in the last year or so, when I'm doing the music, I remembered that every vibration is a frequency,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so I don't know if you play guitar. I know maybe you mentioned you're a musician, but
Yeah, I play keyboard and guitar a little bit here and there.
oh, perfect. So, or anybody else who's a musician. So you have a chord, right? Boom, you pluck it. It's a note because of the frequency that it's vibrating at.
Mm-hmm.
So then I was like, oh, that's interesting. So that means any two objects, if you measure the distance between them, and you could theoretically play a string attached to Earth, and let's
Yeah.
pick on Jupiter some more.
Yeah.
You would not, you couldn't hear it, right? It would just be the deepest thing you've ever, but you could scale it up
Right.
10,000 times into the range of human hearing.
Mm-hmm.
And what I didn't know, so I did all these calculations of like the distance of Jupiter from Earth, and I made
Wow.
chords out of the distances of all these planets.
Wow.
And dude, you know what's messed up? Some of them are perfect fifths. Like
In what
it's
way? Like, what do you
and
mean
so
perfect?
like so the distance from, and I don't have them all
You
memorized,
mean
so
like
I don't want.
correspond? Okay, go ahead, please. Sorry.
So the distance of, like, let's say Mars to Earth is like this long,
Mm-hmm.
but then the distance from Earth to like Venus, or it's like twice as long. And so you have these strings that are like, I'm calling them strings, but they're the distance from the sun or the
I
distance from
see.
the Earth. It's like one's this long, one's this long, one's this long, and then you reach into the way outer. Um, it's creepy. So you'd and it'd be like C, G, another C, going higher and higher and higher. And
Okay.
so I'm like, wow, this is amazing, man. This is whatever. So I made, there's pieces of music on my channel like that. And then I'm watching a YouTube video about Johannes Kepler. He's an astronomer from the Newton era. He's the guy who started the music of the spheres.
Uh-huh.
And
Yeah.
what he was doing was calculating the frequency of the planet's orbit.
Mm-hmm.
There's an apogee and a perigee, which is the closest and the furthest.
Mm-hmm.
And comparing those two frequencies, it's like playing two notes at once.
Mm-hmm.
And so he had all these musical notes written down for the distance of all the planets in the orbit. So I'm like, this freaking guy was doing like, he was like on that same, just for, because of pure intellectual boredom and curiosity.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder what these calculations would be. And then you could Google the Johannes Kepler scales, and he has all the planets and their scales based upon how wide and irregular the orbits. This dude's insane.
It's crazy
Um,
that they were doing things like that back then.
so him and Isaac Newton,
Mm-hmm.
Isaac Newton was a deep diver into the occult, which a lot of people don't know.
Mm-hmm.
It's his contemporary historians didn't want to talk about it because they want to talk about the man who learned how to refract light, and apple fell on his ass and discovered gravity or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
which is myth. It's like chopping down a cherry tree.
Sure.
He did.
Right.
Um, so he was a brilliant man, invented calculus, but he spent the dark hours of his life, and until he died, obsessed with alchemy,
Oh yeah.
just tome after tome after tome, trying to solve when the end of the world was, trying to literally turn lead into gold. And like, that's how he died, just alchemy experiments.
Well, I have read that he also put mercury in his hair. And that's one of the things that led to him having silver hair in a
Yeah.
lot of the photos. So yeah, and he translated the emerald tablets. Like you can't,
Yes.
like, how do you say someone isn't into the esoteric nature of history when they translated the emerald tablets? Anyway, I digress.
Yeah, he would, like, right. And he was doing that stuff, and like his the Pink Floyd Dark Side of the Moon album
Mhm.
cover, which I hope everyone knows what it is, or I'm really disappointed in the rock industry and music. That is Isaac Newton's contribution to the world. Was the a light was shining through a pinhole into a prism, and that's how he discovered that white light contains all the other light spectrums of light. That
It's
album cover is
interesting
like,
to
it's
interject.
crazy.
To interject, it's interesting though that you mentioned the yogis earlier, and they would talk about like the Sahasrara chakra, like being either white or like iridescent, and then
Yes.
it sort of fractalizing into the chakras. Like I think that's a very similar thing that they were sort of on maybe thousands of years ago. And it's interesting to me to associate like the ego or the perspective as the prism that sort of fragments that light, is I guess one way to think about it. It's just interesting to me.
Well, well, the beauty with these colors and these like visible and invisible lights, we're all humans, since we evolved from whatever it was till now, we see the same colors. But maybe the yogis were tuning into these ultraviolet colors they couldn't see, but they just knew were there.
Mm,
Or there's infrared colors they couldn't see and knew were
right.
there. And that's when you're getting up here and you're getting closer to blue and not velvet, violet,
Violet.
purple. And you kind of like, is this the ultraviolet light that they couldn't see but knew was there?
Hmm.
Escaping the visible spectrum of, you could just go forever.
Yeah. Literally, that's one reason I have a channel about this stuff, is because everyone got tired of me talking about it all the time. I had to make somewhere else for me to explore and talk about this stuff because it just goes on and on and on in every single direction.
It's and that's why I'm glad I can make music with these things that go on and on, because I could write that down. Oh, what would ultraviolet lights, if it's beyond the range of human hearing,
Yeah.
what would that sound like? You know, these are like these weird Grateful Dead quotes, like, man, it was Phil Lesh who said, dude, we went to the top of the mountain just to record the sound of air.
That sounds like one of my projects. We're constantly doing
Right.
field recordings.
But like it sounds dumb to like some, like, you know, some muggle or whatever, but to us we're like, dude, I know what he's on. Like, it's making sense to me too.
Yeah,
You want to hear the sound of air on top of the mountain, not in the smoggy streets of San Francisco.
exactly. And there's such a magic to the intention of that as well.
Yeah, I will see. I'm a firm believer. So this is where, when people talk about, is magic real? Is any of this stuff real? You know, and there is some things that are real in the intention. Like, if your mind is focusing on something and tuned to be receiving, that's real. That's like tangibly real. Like, and not only in magic, but in, like, you know, let's say you've been single for a long time, and you're trying to meet somebody, but if you're looking at the ground and you're not giving off that vibe to receive it, you know. And to me, that's kind of what magic is. And I think
Interesting.
a lot of people have had a similar version of that quote, like, what is it? Conformity with your will type of quotes.
Hmm.
Magic is,
Crowley's magic. Yeah. Hmm.
but so like when you so for me, when I'm creating these systems where I let the systems make the music,
Hmm.
for me that is like an intention where I like, I don't want to sound like I have an ego, but what I'm getting at is, when I like have this intention of, like, I want to hear what the sound of the frequency difference between Mars and Venus, and I want to meditate on those frequencies and those colors and make music that only contains those frequencies and colors. I know it's going to be good, because that's, there's no like improv. There's no like, oh, it's not in tune. There's no fine adjustment. It's like, it is what it is.
Yeah.
And it fucking works, man.
Well, as it would, you're imitating nature to a very large
Yes.
degree, and that's how you know it's going to be beautiful because nature is beautiful. So when you take a piece of that fractal and you sort of like zoom in on it's going to be beautiful more times than not, I think.
I'm a firm believer in that. The connection between music and mathematics is like always spoken of, but
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
um, it's not easy to grasp, or explain, as I'm struggling. Um, but every sound we hear is a frequency. You know what I
Hmm.
mean?
Hmm.
Every color
Yes.
emits a frequency. And so, just like with the distance of two objects makes a chord you could pluck,
Hmm.
two colors are also two frequencies.
Hmm.
Now you have to multiply the math a little, because I don't know what they are, but they're like nanometers, the wavelength of color. And so colors, it's kind of messed up to think, but a piano from left to right is basically a rainbow.
I
If
was
you
going to say
tuned
the
all
same
the,
thing. Yeah.
it's basically a rainbow.
Hmm.
And I don't know if that's where Paul Case came up with the system of the octave. Like, I don't, it's like, it's in Golden Dawn books, but I don't know who first came up with this. Was the note C corresponds to Aries,
Yeah, and the
and
color red. Hmm.
the next and red, the next note up is C sharp, which corresponds to Taurus.
Hmm.
You know, just this, and there's 12 zodiac signs. There's 12 notes in an octave, and so the color scheme, that's the mind-blowing pattern to memorize. Your color correspondence for your signs. This is the chromatic version, from red all the way back to red again. but it's also from the note C and chromatic. So if you skip, I can see you thinking. So, so if you're thinking like, oh shit, what would mine be? So
Yeah.
then, if I have I'm trying to explain this for non-musicians, but it is a circle.
Mhm.
A lot of kids or anyone who's took music classes in school or any structure learns the circle of fifths, and it's a wheel, and it goes like from C, G, D, A. Every note is what's called a fifth apart.
Mhm.
Um, but there's essentially 12 little slots, just like the zodiac. So the very first thing I did for ambient esoterica was I took that circle of fifths wheel and I stuck it on top of the zodiac. And I had
Okay.
Capricorn as note C, and then Aquarius as G, Pisces as D. Like, I just made up my own version of this.
Yeah.
And so I made a symphony based upon my birth chart.
Right.
So it was like the day I was born, I'm a Virgo, that was this note. And then my rising sign was this astrological sign. And then the moon was in this. So I had a 3 note chord of my sun, moon, and rising sign. Dude, this is the weird stuff I do with my life.
This is the stuff I love, and this is why I wanted to talk to you. So don't weird is good on this channel.
I figured. So like it's another thing. Like, so when I said like I was trying to measure these notes for the planets from the distance of the sun and the earth, and then I find out Johannes Kepler has already done this
Sure.
in a different way, but he did it without computers and like knowing that Pluto existed.
Right. Yeah.
Or Neptune, even, I think, actually. No, he did have Neptune in there, but not Uranus.
Mm.
Um, what's I going with that? Oh, so then I'm like, I'm just messing around on the internet, trying to find free occult books to read and crap, just because like you can't always find the books you want to find. And I find this thing, and it's a keyboard, like 1 octave. It's like if you were to look at a piano and just take a picture of an octave, trying to explain this,
Mhm.
and it had every note colored. And C was red, and it was in a rainbow, all the way up to B, and
Mhm.
then at C it was red again. And I'm like, son of a, somebody's already done this. And then above it, C was Aries, right? And then D was Gemini, and E was Leo, right? Just giving a couple of signs. And I was like, oh, they did theirs chromatically. But my version was similar, but mine skipped every color by a fifth or something. It's not important for the discussion, but so as far as I Googled, it was Paul Case who came up with
Mhm.
red for Aries and the note C. And that's how he started this. Like, that's where the octave starts, the 12 notes. And
Yeah.
you see it in the Rosy Cross, those 12 petals. Like, it's
Yes.
all there,
I love
but you just have to
yeah,
unlock it, You just got to
exactly.
unlock it.
I think Paul Foster Case came up with that in the same way Newton came up with calculus. I think it was just a discovery that was based on like I don't want to say exegesis, but like the exploration of multiple things corresponding to one another. I think like these things are like floating around in our head sometimes, and like molecules, like atoms just come together and they naturally fit with one another, and then you just get that like lightning bolt, that like aha, like moment that wait a minute, these are related, and then you put them
It's
together and it's just this beautiful thing.
is so cool. And
I think go
like
ahead, please.
like I was just going to mention Eliphas Levi, same thing with the 3 mother letters, the dot, with the where he separated like, so, like it. In hindsight, it's like, how did you even think to like do that? And it's in that Rosy Cross, the 3, the 7, and the 12.
Mm-hmm.
And as modern humans, we have 12 astrological signs. We have 12 notes on a scale. We have our color wheel is like 3 primary colors, then 3 whatever other colors. I can never remember if they're called tertiary or, but I learned it and I made videos about it. But it's 12 colors basically. There's 3
Yeah.
colors and you can make a total of 12 colors.
Mm-hmm.
And then the 7 is like the super magical number, and people have written about 7
Mhm.
till the cows come home. You got your seven chakras. You got it's
You,
endless, man.
you could go on and on
It's
and on about number seven. Yeah.
but these are the things that I turn into music. These like ideas.
Mhm.
And so what really kicked it into overdrive is I keep referring to a piano having 12 notes in an octave. And I was running into struggles because I was trying to turn a periodic table into music. Like I was trying to make every element be a chord.
Right.
I had to abandon this thing because it was I could do it now, but I didn't have the tools and understanding of how to tune my instruments
Mhm.
in what's called microtone, which
Ooh, okay.
means you could split your octave up into as many notes as you want. I could split my octave up into 72 notes if I wanted to. And then, which I did, and I created a video about the angels of the
I was
Sephirah,
the
or
Shimham. Okay, I was
the
about to say you could do that with
Shemhamphorash.
the
Yeah.
Nuesha and the Shimham Farash.
So
Wow.
I did exactly. And you could do for like the night ruler, day ruler. Just there's a lot of stuff that's 72 in the occult too.
Oh
It
yeah.
never ends, man.
I never. That's what I love. I always describe Kabbalah specifically as an endless. Well, a lot of people describe it as an endless filing cabinet. But yeah, one thing that we were speaking about synesthesia earlier. One thing that I was going to mention in relation to just like things happening that way is, um, when I was a kid, I would sit out on the driveway when it would just first start raining, and I would watch the raindrops collect on the ground before me, and this combination of like visual imagery and sounds would happen. It was like a kalimba or like a thumb harp. And I would hear
Ah,
the raindrops hitting, and based on how far away they were from me, so like the closer they were, the higher the note would be, and the further
yes,
away, the lower the note would be. And I would just,
yes.
I'm getting chills right now. I would just hear this music in my head, and I would just sort of like conk out, like staring at the driveway as a 5 or 6 year old. And my mom or my grandma would be like, "You're gonna catch pneumonia, get inside." And I'm just like, "No, the angels!" Like,
Oh man.
because it felt that way, like I was having a divine communication
Yes.
with something when I would see those things. So it sounds like that's sort of what's going on with you, is like you're witnessing like a divine language that you're picking up on, and you're trying to interpret it or translate it, perhaps.
Yeah, and there's a term for it, which I it's funny. I'm learning everything. I stumble in and I try to figure stuff out, and then one day I'm like, oh, there's a word for this, and now
Mhm.
there's an entire Wikipedia article, and there's already a Reddit, thing.
Thread,
There's a Discord
yeah.
entirely dedicated to this word I've never heard of before.
Yeah,
Whatever, but
yeah.
they call it sonification, right?
Okay, I'd never heard of
It's
that.
called sonification, and it's basically turning the world into music, turning data into music, turning graphs into music, like, and a
Right.
lot of we've see you're like,
Yeah.
I saw one of the night sky or whatever,
Yeah.
and or but those don't sound to me. They don't sound like music. They just sound like static.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And so that's part of what I'm trying to bring to it is yeah,
More
I
harmony,
could
maybe?
it well it's how so the part I'm composing for these self-writing pieces of music is the system.
Mhm.
I'm creating this system that says the letter E will be this note, right? But my system isn't as simple as like A, B, C, D, E, F, G. It's the letter E is the most common letter in the English alphabet.
Right. Hmm.
And you can go to a Wikipedia page and they have a sequence of the letters that are most common. They have their frequency of usage in multiple languages. Yeah, I'm sorry, man. It's too much.
No, I love
How
it.
do you think I feel? Because I stumble upon this and I go, I could turn every single thing I've ever read into a piece of music.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
Yeah,
it
no,
sucks. And
well,
it's hard to do. And it's like I have to eat and earn money. I can't just sit around doing this shit all day.
yeah, yeah. I love the ideas. It's not it's no burden. Trust me. I'm feeling inspired when I do that. And you just reminded me that I also, when I was a teenager, I would listen to the there were videos on the internet back in the AOL days. I can hear the dial-up in my head now.
Real
But there were,
TV,
yeah, yeah,
real
exactly.
audio or whatever. So bad.
There were these videos that people would take like the distance from New York to LA, and then they would like plot it based on like, I don't even know how to explain it. Basically, they would create a plot graph and then they would sort it. And the process, they would take random data and sort it. And so it'd be like like random notes, and then it'd be like and it would like sort
Yes.
them perfectly. And this was just like so calming and relaxing to me that I would just, it was so, in retrospect it's not that weird, but to all my friends and family it was super weird that I would just sit around listening to this stuff all day. But yeah.
How do you think Brian Eno's neighbors feel? You know what I
Oh
mean?
man.
Because he was on a similar trip, but his thing was more like intentional, right? He's writing these pieces of music where I'm doing like I'm throwing dominoes. Or no, I didn't do a runes one yet. I'm trying to, because some of them I've abandoned because I was like I got to get better gear and make this work out. But like throwing down tarot cards, every tarot card is a note,
Oh yeah.
and these systems already exist, but you have to go through the nooks and crannies and actually want to figure it out.
Hmm.
So you can have a 3-card reading that is a 3-note chord, boom, and dude, there's just endless. So this is how I get stuck in this world, like systems and pattern thinking. Is like they should be a warning. Like forget warning people about getting into the cult and you'll start worshiping the devil and like doing drugs. You're going to end up, if you're me, too many damn ideas.
Yeah, yeah, watch out for music. Don't, music is a gateway drug if you're watching this.
Well, I have the 777 book right next to
Uh-huh.
me.
Sure.
That whole thing, every single page of that could be turned into music. And I'm not using that book for music, but like I've done videos turning the I Ching into music. All the Bhagavad, I've turned in the 28 nakshatra star system into music. I've turned into GPS coordinates into music, where I did a tour of random popular cities on Earth. And like the XY coordinate is a 2-note chord. And it's, dude, this stuff just, when
I'd
you
be interested to see
it's just
the,
so dumb. They're all on my channel. They're just whatever. I don't say nobody's watching them, but like I do this because I want to,
right.
you know.
Right. Well, hopefully this will bring some awareness. I would be interested to see how the opening of the, like the first verse of the Bible, the Barashit bara Elohim ata shamayim ve'ata haaretz, would translate into music. I wonder if it would be something. Yeah, I wonder how that would sound if one were to translate that. Like if it would be to some degree like the sound of the Big Bang, or like, you know what I mean?
Um, well, I did experiment that. Well, the Shemhamphorash is these 4 verses. Is it from Exodus, or do you? I might be wrong on
It's
this.
Genesis 1:1 in Hebrew. It's, yeah, it's, or yeah,
And
yeah, I'm
what
pretty
they
sure that. Oh, you're talking
whatever.
about for the Shimham Farash. Yeah,
Yeah,
they
how they
take
took
the
4
lines and then
verses,
they do the three
they
letters. Yeah,
chopped them
yeah,
all
yeah.
up, and
Yeah,
they
sorry.
did 3 letters, and then to speak it, you add either
An
ia or
L. Yeah.
e or l,
Mhm.
so it makes the sound. Um, though every Hebrew letter, and I always want to say who came up with these ideas because I don't really know, but every Hebrew letter is already been assigned a note.
Mhm.
So you literally could. So
Yeah,
my I have a Shimham Farash one that plays the 3-note combination. It's like boom, boom,
like
boom, for
chords or like an
I think I
arpeggio.
did. I haven't listened to it forever, but I think it's at the same time like a two-handed like
Okay.
and then the next one. But then so then I did that with that, and then I did one with the LBRP, lesser banishing ritual pentagram, where those all have Hebrew attributions. And so I
Absolutely.
turned those into chords. And then it was like someone commented, you should do this, man. So of course I did the what's it called? The Kabbalistic cross, which
Okay.
has Mikael and
Uh-huh.
Gabriel, and like those words, if you go to the original Hebrew,
Hmm.
each letter, it's kind of like
It's like the Frithar
numerology.
friends. Oh, okay,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
It's kind of like numerology, but they also have a pitch that's already been traditionally assigned. Not ancient Hebrew assigned, but like somewhere between Eliphas Levi and the Golden Dawn and Paul Case, somewhere in there. I don't know who came up with it, but
Well,
it's
what
easily Googleable, or maybe not easily Googleable.
I have a feeling that this has just been passed down. Like I think one person built on it and then passed it down to the next, and I could be wrong about that, obviously, but I I have a hard time believing, much like Newton said, we stand on the shoulders of giants. Like I don't think anybody necessarily just like came up with it, but I think that maybe some person worked with it more than another. Perhaps I don't know. And the angels' names have meanings. Like Raphael means God heals, and Mikael means like he who is as God. Like these
Right.
the angels' names have meanings too. So it's interesting to see what the music sounds like in relation to the meaning.
That's what I do for fun. And it sounds good. It like it as long as you qualify it as ambient, because then you can get away with some really not
Or
ugly sounding
avant-garde, yeah.
chords. Because like if you try to pick up a guitar and play the chord for Hesed or Tippereth, I don't know. I don't know what's going to sound like on a guitar. It probably sound worse on an acoustic guitar than at least an electric. You can add something to it, some
Yeah,
chorusing or
yeah.
whatever. But so I did one for every sphere of the Sephiroth. I did Kether, Chokmah, Bina, said, and that's all the way down, but in their Hebrew. And so videos on my channel, you can hear those arpeggiated, like depending on how many letters. Every of those words have different amounts of letters, but I played it live. But it's just whatever.
So are there are
It's
there
a mess, man. It's a mess because like you have to like know when to stop. So like for that particular video, I went through each sphere, right, from top to bottom. That's the order I chose. And I'm like, okay, I have the notes for Keter. Oh shit. But each letter also has a corresponding color. So as I spell the letters, they're each in their corresponding color. And then I'm like, but Golden Dawn likes flashing colors. So
uh-huh,
their outline is the flashing color.
sure.
And then I'm like, well, then the background of the screen has to be the color of the sphere. And so then each sphere, the color, dude, it was all good till I got to Malkuth, and it's not a solid color. It's
Oh, it's yeah,
it's four
citrine,
different colors,
olive,
right?
russet, and black. Yeah.
So anyway, I pulled it off. I'm not like a great graphic artist, but I pulled it off. I had to be like, all right, how do I do this? Google is your friend. But then like, so if I just like gave someone, hey, check out my new song. It's called Crystal Magic or whatever. It'd be
Yeah.
like, this is a stupid song. Who cares? But when you see what is going into the name, the notes, the letters are hitting as the notes hit on screen, it starts to contextualize. Interesting. This is what this would sound like.
Mhm. Yeah.
So, dude,
Yeah,
it's
that is an interesting point about Malkuth having four traditional colors, and because that just fractalizes in itself, and each Hebrew letter has a spelling too. Like
yes.
like
There's different versions of that too.
yeah, exactly. So you could
Hate it
actually
all.
break Malkuth into the spelling of Mem, the spelling of Lamed, and on and on and on and on. And like you said, it never ends. So you have to know when to stop. A lot of this work can lead to obsession. I will admit that, especially if you're highly intellectual, or if you're really into solving puzzles, it can
Yeah.
take a lot of your time.
I'm telling you, man, I'm gonna be the first person in rehab for having too many ideas. They're like, you're not allowed to try anything new. Like, so I tackled the Hebrew, right? And so then I was like, fuck it. I'm gonna do it for Arabic alphabet too.
Interesting.
And the Arabic and Hebrew alphabet have almost a one-to-one correspondence with their letters. They
They're
come
pretty
from the same
similar.
source.
Yeah.
There's there's a little bit of things on the edges, but
Yeah.
it's Aleph, Bim. It's still A, B, even in English. So I did one in Arabic for the days of the week spelled in Arabic, for the names of the planets spelled in Arabic.
Wow.
Same system, but this system is just one I created based upon this is how they did the Hebrew one. So I'm going to make one for Arabic letters. And it's kind of the same concept. Then I did one for like Morse code. They just keep thinking of
Interesting.
stupid ideas.
Yeah,
So I
there's
did like
Morse code. Yeah, there's all kinds of ideas. Go ahead.
it never stops. It never stops. Morse code. I did one for Braille. There's like a certain amount
Wow.
of dots per letter, and I'm like, that's the sound, kind of similar to the dominoes idea. Those
Yeah.
each became notes.
That reminds me of those old things that you would, the music boxes that you would crank, and they had like the dots
Yes.
that would pluck the, like it's a kalimba, a crank kalimba essentially. But yeah, you mentioned Braille, and like I'm off on. Then I'm thinking about translating a Nokian and into music and colors and things. Speaking of a Nokian, are there any entities that you have felt inspired by, or you've helped have you feel have helped propel you in your magical and musical interests?
That's probably where I have a giant blind spot. I don't know if it's because when I was younger, I was afraid of like literal devils,
Mm-hmm.
but like I would say it's a fear of entities, but my
Mm-hmm.
brain is so stubborn.
Mm-hmm.
It currently, it's keeping them parked as psychological.
Mm-hmm.
I know other people have worded it in a similar way, but I have trouble with it. Not that I have a problem with it, but
Mm-hmm.
um, maybe it is a fear, maybe it is a fear where I've escaped this fear of the devil by reading the Satanic Devil or Satanic Bible, the
Uh-huh.
Anton LaVey version.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, oh, he helped me realize that this is all a circus. This is just a show. Um, so I don't know. I don't know if I'm ready for entities, man. I know
No,
about the
that's
Goetia.
totally understandable. I and
I'm
I
definitely open to like sonifying Goetia, and I'm definitely planning to do the Enochian watchtowers, all those
mm,
colors. It's
yes.
it's written down in my giant document of
I
I'm never gonna get to.
I don't think there's anything wrong with perceiving entities as specifically archetypal or psychological. I think oftentimes it's more grounding and beneficial for people to see it. If you had to choose between thinking about them literally or archetypally, I think in today's society, it's oftentimes for most people more beneficial to think about them from an archetypal level. And I
Yes.
sort of do that to some extent. And that's like, if I think about like music, like to me that reminds me of like Dionysus or something, so I'm like channeling my inner Dionysus perhaps, as opposed to like worshiping that force and saying, hey, give me a song, muse. It's like a call to the inner muse, I guess. I don't think there's anything wrong with
See,
seeing it that way.
yeah. I guess I do approach it that way. I definitely like if I identify as any type of archetypes, it's the Hermes,
Yeah.
Mercury, like Virgo archetypes, the angel Michael. Um,
Okay.
when I do the lesser banishing ritual of the pentagram, like for myself, when I do it,
Mm-hmm.
I like it's a little modified, but when I reach and I do and on my right, Michael, I I I wait for him to touch my right hand. Yeah.
Interesting.
But I don't believe it's real. But I kind of in my mind am visualizing he grabs my hand and says, all right, you're good to go. And Uriel. And then
I like that.
When I do Gabriel, in my mind, I'm visualizing four trumpets, two on each side, making a note behind my head.
Wow.
But
That's
this is based
powerful.
on it's based on their imagery, right?
Sure. Yeah,
So
the trumpet. Yeah.
he's the sound of the trumpet. So like um, but all of that is part of what makes the magic, as powerful as it can be, is the more all of us can visualize or get into that frame,
Mm-hmm.
and that works for me. It doesn't mean my way is better than Damien Eccles' way or Lon Milo Duquette's way or
Sure.
Poke Runion's way. Like they're all slightly different. Mine is slightly different. I
Yeah.
have arthritis, so it's a little hard to like do the cross perfectly, like get this arm to go like that.
Sure.
So I just kind of like pull the light
Mm-hmm.
straight down, and then I blow the shoulder up like a spear. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
that works for me.
I think it should be a little bit different for everybody. I try to look at all of these ancient teachings as a template to find your own system that works for you. And I love the idea of the entity or the spirit or the angel touching you. I mean, that's highly symbolic. It's you're making a connection to that force, whatever it
Yes.
is. If it's a stellar ray, if it's a cosmic principality, whatever it is, you're connecting to it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the beginning of the ritual starts like that too. This is the lesser banishing
Mhm.
pentagram or invoking, whichever I'm doing. But
Mhm.
you know, most versions start with your arm up or your wand straight up.
Mhm.
For me, I'm visualizing like not this growing larger and larger, which is some people's technique, which is
Mhm.
I tried it that way. What I do is I reach my hand up and I'm waiting my turn for the light to get to my wand and be like, "Oh, it's not your turn yet." And I can sense when it's my turn to start the thing. It's just you just wait and you know when you kind of like angle it a little back. Oh no, no, a little bit. Boom, that's the spot. And then you pull
Huh.
it down. So, but no one taught me that. That's just how that progressed over years of doing that.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that you're taking an artistic license because I think so much of this is an art. For instance, I guess I'll share something personal. I didn't really like the sign of the Zelator. It seemed very reminiscent of other things. So what I would do instead was put my hand over my heart and I would lift it like I would reach up like I was offering it to my higher daemon essentially. Like so instead of like shooting my arm straight out, I would do this. And that was for me the sign of the Zelator. And the funny thing about that is I saw my grandfather do that in a dream. I had this dream right after my grandpa passed away, and he raised me. I had this dream right after he passed away that I was sitting in the living room with all of my family, and there was this huge storm that was about to like. I live in the Midwest, so tornadoes are huge. There was this huge storm, and
Oh boy.
everybody's like freaking out. And my grandpa, in my dream, looks me right in the eyes and says, "The sign of the Zelator." And
No.
we both do this movement, and I'm getting so chills right now, but we both do this movement and like the storm like blows over or whatever. And I wake up and I'm like reaching for my notepad and pen because I keep a pen and paper right next to my bed. And so like that was super meaningful to me. And it was only like my second or third time performing that gesture and the ceremony that I realized, huh, it's like I'm pulling my heart out and offering it to my higher self. And I was just like, thanks, Grandpa. You know what I mean? Like making things your own, I think can be more powerful sometimes.
This could be a good one. Was your grandpa a Freemason as far as you know?
He was in a fraternal order that was not the Masons, but I believe derived from the Masonic and Rosicrucian traditions.
Hmm.
I've actually got one of his swords in the corner over there, or maybe I'll send it to you after this call. But yeah, why do you
So
ask?
that thing you're doing,
Uh huh.
I'm not going to tell you what degree it's from or reveal any secret or the name of it, but Masons are really big on right angles and squares. And so your hand like this, they have a sign that's exactly like that, except the hand is at a right angle. So when you see, um, it's a way that presidents back in the day, because back in the day, this is how, like, if you were in and they say, put your right hand over your heart and do pledge allegiance,
Uh huh.
most people just go, whatever. But if
Huh.
your hand is perfectly square like this,
Which I've seen, yeah.
you could scan across the room and see who the Masons are. And what makes it the sign is you don't just go, it's
Wow. That is that's kind of blowing my mind.
but
The fact that
it's
I
just
saw that in a dream from my
yes.
grandpa who
That's
had
why when I
just
saw you do
deceased.
that, I was like, is he trying to see if I know this sign? Is this like a test?
No, no, I saw that in a dream right after my grandfather passed away. It was like he was imparting some secret on me or something. And to this day, when I make the sign of the Zelator, when I do workings with things like that, that's what I do. Thank you
Well,
for
see,
sharing that with me. I
but see,
really appreciate that.
well, you're sharing with me because I don't know it as the sign of the Zelator, but the meaning is the same as you're giving the heart. You're
Yeah, yeah. Wow.
it's very, they have some other signs that are, but one of the key, like, I'm not going to give signs, but one of the most common themes of Masonic science is they're very I'm not actually doing signs, but they're very symmetrical. There's a lot
Mhm,
of right angles.
mhm,
Um, there's a way that you can place your hands on a table to where people will know you're a Mason.
sure.
There's a way you could swear on a Bible, just the way your arms are oriented.
Posture,
They'll
sure.
know you're a Mason or not. And it's fun to like see it in real life occasionally.
Uh-huh.
And you're
It's like,
like,
oh, I recognize that. Yeah. Yeah.
I saw I saw one in the OJ trial that just cracked me up.
Interesting.
And they were talking about his glove, and they were like, but his so if his hands are like this, and I was like, it's not just the shape of the hands, it's where he had the hands. I'm
Hmm.
like, dude, that is um I don't like back when I was younger, I'd be like, ooh. But now I know like a judge is gonna be like, get that crap out of my courtroom.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
maybe not in the 1800s,
Yeah.
those
I
white Earp boys.
I often
Whoop.
wonder how much leeway people get with that stuff, but it seems like Freemasonry is sort of, I don't want, and I'm not trying to be disrespectful here, but it seems like it's dwindling a bit.
Oh yeah.
And I think the nature of the actual judges and the people who have a say in how the trial goes are completely oblivious to a lot of those gestures and
Yes.
um, codes,
Yes.
whatever you would call them,
Yeah, their
passwords.
numbers were like in the 1940s, 50s. They were like everyone had a grandpa, uncle, dad,
Right,
whatever. But
right.
I'm a perfect example of why their numbers are dwindling. Like I was a young kid, I read all the literature. I'm like, dude, this sounds like these people are serious.
Right.
And you get in, and they're like, hey, and they're talking about going to wherever to go, a weekend trip to go gambling, and then who's gonna make coffee next week. And it was
Yeah.
like talk to some younger Masons who have like joined and left. They'll be like, yeah, man, I felt like I was more into it than they were.
It
It's
sounds like a country club is what I was trying to say earlier. Like,
unfortunately, yeah, unfortunately. And like I was very lucky that when I did my first main degrees, there still wasn't an internet that gave those secrets away. So when I did my first, second, and third degree, I literally had no idea what was going to happen to me.
hmm,
Um, Nowadays, if you really want to know, you can Google it, and
right.
I've looked at the sources, and they're pretty freaking accurate. But like, so I didn't know, man. And like, I'm blindfolded. I'm
It's
walking
like,
in
am
a
I gonna
room,
die?
dude. I'm walking in a room, and in the third degree, you do get killed, and it's freaky. And like well,
Yeah,
you can read about it.
sure.
It's a weird thing they're going through now. It's like they know the information's out there, but
Yeah.
like so like I finished and like they like hit you over the head and they push you down and like you don't know that behind you someone's going to catch you and you're just like, dude, they're kicking my ass right now. They're literally going to kill me. Like you feel like,
What did I
dude,
do? I messed up.
what did what did I just fucking and then like they resurrect you and this whole
Uh-huh.
freaking thing, right?
Uh-huh.
And then afterwards they're like, hey, Bear, did you know that was going to happen? I was like, dude, I had no idea. Like I walked in there, you got a blindfold on, and
Hmm.
people are like, so like as far as that ritual absorbing, like, oh, I got it, man.
Oh yeah.
Uh,
Uh-huh.
it
It
was it was
changes you.
impressed it was impressed upon me, like, don't it was like basically give me the secrets of a master mason or I will take your life. And then
Hmm.
someone behind you answers the questions for you.
Right, right, right.
Um, and you're like, this is kind of getting gnarly.
Uh-huh.
And then and it keeps going, and like you don't know, is this going on for another hour? Are they all laughing at me? Are they all naked? Like
That's
you have a
funny.
blindfold on, and you're like, um, depending on the degree, you have a different costume on, for
Sure.
lack of a.
And the temples
So
arranged differently. Yeah.
yes, and a blindfold is very disorienting. It's a brilliant device
Oh yeah.
because they walk you in
Yeah,
circles,
they
and then
push you around. Yeah.
yeah, and then when you stop, you're just like, I remember when I got my first degree, they walk you around circles and they're like doing all this weird stuff. And then they kneel you down, like they forcibly, all right, it's okay to kneel down. And when I knelt, I felt like the room was still spinning because I had been walked in
Wow.
so many circles. And
Wow.
I don't know if that was an intentional thing that was
Probably.
lost through the years, where when you sit, you're like, you feel like you're spinning, but then there's also people still walking around, and
Yeah.
that effect, I swear, if I would open my eyes, I was going to be on a lazy Susan being spun around.
Wow. It
So that was
reminds me of
cool.
it reminds me of like being the Earth spinning around while the other planets are sort of revolving around you. I don't know if I'm giving any secrets here, but that's what I
No, I mean,
intuited when you said that.
that's what's like the reflection. Like what did I just go through? I
Yeah,
mean, like,
exactly. Yes.
and to pass the degree, you have to be able to they kind of test you to make sure you absorbed it all, and
Hmm. Hmm.
you pass the grade. But like, you can break it down as far as you want. You
A
can
lot of yeah.
go, you can go, oh, I was going Wittershins, or was I going Diodoso? Like, and you start thinking, wait, I stopped in the east. Oh shit! But this other ritual, they stopped me in the west. What the
Uh-huh.
hell's going on with that? Hmm. You know,
Yeah. I
for
think a
people like
lot
me,
of
that
times I think a lot of times they actually want the aspirant or the celebrant to break those things down, because like they log all of that stuff and they put it into the teachings, or like the history of at least the order that I belong to. You would have to translate a lot of the ceremonies that you went through, and basically they're keeping track, and sometimes you'll hear them go like when you give an interpretation, it's like
ah,
it's like, oh, that must have been something new, like, or maybe they
ah,
weren't expecting me to pick up on that. But yeah, I guess to give a little bit about myself, I was formally initiated into an order that wasn't the Golden Dawn, it wasn't the Freemasons, it wasn't OTO, but it's a fairly common order, and they blindfolded me and had me, they were basically shoving me around this room, and there was one point where they lifted my blindfold more than once during, but one of the times there was a sword that was, I mean, an inch away from my nose, and I had just accepted whatever was going to happen to such a degree that it alarmed the person holding the sword at my face,
no,
that it didn't alarm me more than it actually alarmed me. Like, I just remember the reaction of the person like holding the sword and then like sort of like doing that, because I was just
you weren't
ready for,
flinching.
yeah, I was just like, let's do this. Like, what's, like, I'm ready to move on to the next life
Nice.
if that's what's going to happen. And it was
That's
a very
good.
powerful ceremony.
That's good. That in hindsight, there was some cool days when I was
Yeah.
in the fraternity.
Hmm.
Those rituals and some of the Scottish Rite rituals, it's like it, they just did some cool stuff like that. Like,
Hmm.
do you trust your brothers? Are you gonna jump off? You're gonna, and you're like, fuck, man, am I? Am I going to trust old Harold and Bill over here to catch me? Because they came in on a walker,
Yeah, I saw
like,
him, his hands shaking when he was trying to drink his
yeah.
coffee this morning.
There
That's
was some
funny.
funny times. There were some funny times, but
Hmm. So
uh,
are there any, go ahead, go ahead.
I'm just laughing about. I haven't thought about the Masons in a long time. When you approached me, I was like, well, that's where it started, and then I left, and it entered into like, all right, let's get serious and do my own path kind of thing.
Hmm.
So I'm kind of laughing about the Masons and the things that they still think are secret, but are they've had countless movies made about Jack the Ripper, and like the manner in which some of those ladies were murdered. It's verbatim your oath,
Yeah.
heart ripped out,
Hmm.
disemboweled. It's like, um, it's legit. Whoever was doing those crimes either knew or was a Mason, because they hit every mark. And
Hmm. Interesting. I had never made that correlation before. That's very
no, it's
intriguing.
there's a penalty for violating your oath, and at each degree there's a new penalty. You'll do this to me, and you'll throw me out in the ocean, or you cut my tongue out, whatever.
Hmm.
And so I was like, when I was first learning about the Masons, I read this Jack the Ripper and Scotland Yard book, and I was like, huh,
Sounds familiar.
hmm. And there's a famous part of that Jack the Ripper's thing. There's like the police arrive and there's something on the wall, and it says the Jews will not be blamed. Ju, not not Hebrew people, but
Hmm.
and like they erased it when they got on the scene. It's
Ah,
legendary. They erased it
huh.
right away. The people who murder you in the third degree, all of their names begin with J U.
Hmm.
And
Very
so a
interesting.
Mason who sees that written goes, "Oh, oh, wipe that out. He just
Yeah.
named a Masonic conspiracy."
Uh-huh.
So that was one of the final clues. I was like, dude, this is a just nail in the coffin. This was a Mason. Like, who else would know that? And to spell it all wrong purposely,
Yeah, that's a code. Yeah. Well, and
that was a good one.
I always read that he did what he did because of his brother. So perhaps his brother was a Mason and kept a journal and he read all of that stuff and then did it just to add to the conspiracy a little more as if it weren't a big enough conspiracy already.
Yeah, or it got out of control, you know? Oh, you did two already? Well, I'm gonna do three then. And like now you got two different guys imitating the same legend,
Uh-huh.
basically.
Yeah,
Oh, it's a good story, man. It's so good.
man. I'd never thought about it that way. So how is magic generally viewed in your area or the occult?
It's positive. We
It
got
is?
occult stores in my town.
Cool.
Um, yeah, I don't want to dox myself, but it's
Sure.
an occult, it's an occult friendly town.
Okay, that's yeah, that's all I was wondering.
It's a
And
melting pot. Everything's here, man.
awesome. So how do you get into the mindset for to make your music? Does the association of all of these correspondence just sort of get you in the mood, or is like do you light a certain incense? Do you chant a certain mantra?
I do. I have incense burning literally all day long, just
Same.
and candles all the
Same.
time.
Yep.
Um, it just at nighttime I have candlelight. There's no natural light. I just like it's my vibe, man. I'm like
Yeah.
I'm Dracula, Darth Vader, all in one at nighttime, man.
I love it. I love it.
So like, but that's my vibe to create the music. You know what I mean? I'm not going to create my music while binge watching Vampire Diaries or I don't watch TV, but like when I'm creating music, this everything is like
Yep.
I have done clearing and like um in some degree the Wiccan practices helped when I was learning that
Okay.
um kind of like how you would consecrate tools.
I love it.
Um there's a way of like, all right, I'm going to start this project now. I need to make sure my room's clean. I'm not going to try to create something amazing with like whatever crap all over my counter or a dirty stove. Like I'm going to clean the house first.
Right.
And for me, that is like, all right, I'm this is where the magic becomes the real thing because I've had really good success with this approach. It's like, all right, now, all right, I have permission to start creating, and it's kind of
Right.
like very respectful with whatever instrument I'm using. Um, not on an OCD level, but just kind of like this is I'm creating something real, you know.
Yeah.
I'm not. Um, I've been I've been writing songs all my life, like regular songs, you would call it, multiple genres. But for this type of music, since I'm going for, um, I'll use an example. I did a magical square sonification. So I
Love
did
it.
all the first, must have been the first 9 levels for the 9 planets all the way up into the moon. So it's like Saturn, is it 9? Maybe it's
Yeah.
7. So it's like,
Eight.
so every planet starts with Saturn with 3 by 3 square, and then Jupiter a 4 by 4 square.
Mm,
And you know, there's a number in each of those squares. If
sure.
anyone, you can Google magical square, planetary magical square, and you'll see what I'm talking about. And so the numbers are like 1, 3, 7, 13. They're very low numbers. They're not like, they're just, you know, usually less than 100 is the size of the number.
Yeah, like 81 would be for the moon, basically.
Yeah, yeah. It's like 9 by 9. And so I was like, I like binaural beats. You know, binaural beats are two frequencies really close together and they kind of vibrate like a guitar that's not yet tuned, like
Yeah, dissonance
and then it
almost.
lines up, right? So I was like, oh, each of those squares, I'll use that as a binaural beat frequency. And so when I'm creating this, I have to really zone out. And so I have my speakers on, and like the first square is a 3. So I program the synth of a 3 hertz. Ooh, it's
Nice.
really slow. Then the next square might be a 16. And then it's like, Then the next square comes up and it's whatever it is. I don't have them memorized. I'm not a savant. So I did that for every little square. The whole video, I haven't watched in a while because every time I put it on, you just like, because
Right. Well, yeah, it clears things. I love. I
you
hate
can't do
when they're
anything else when that's on. You're just like, I can't drive. You can't drive a car.
no.
Just don't, because it's just most binaural beats stay at that same thing for a long time and you zone out. Well, this one is more like, I'll try to demonstrate it without making myself sound ridiculous, but it'll be like
Yeah,
as it goes through each
like
number.
a polyrhythm almost.
Yeah, very, very much so. And it sounds chaotic, but the beauty of those magical squares is they are mathematically sound.
Sure.
So it will average out to where you've hit every frequency equally. There's not going to be one that's super crazy and one that's, dude, that thing took me so long to create because I had to, for every square, I put like a color on the number.
Sure.
And I went like, it was like 200 Photoshop slides or whatever it turned out to be. But I'm pretty proud of that one, you know, like,
It
but it's one of
sounds
those,
really cool. And I love how like Saturn would be really slow because it takes it's like what like 67 years or like something for its
oh,
orbit.
its return is like 30, approximately 30 years.
Oh, it's
Yeah.
like 27 years. Sorry. Yeah,
The
it's like
Saturn return. Yeah.
yeah, it's like 27 years. But the moon is like super fast. It's like
Yes.
oscillating around the earth, and the 9 would be a really high hertz. So that
It's,
is fractal as well.
it, it's so dumb. Some of the videos on my homepage now. So like, I kind of got bored with just doing the 7 tradition because I was like, I want to stick to the true
Right.
traditional magical planets, right? Those sun, moon, earth, all the way up, only up until Saturn. My practice, I don't use Jupiter, Uranus, or Pluto. I just don't use them. Might be because I just don't want to deal with it because it breaks a lot of my systems. It's
At
like,
least you're willing to admit that.
well, like, because like for me, like Pisces is ruled by Jupiter, right? But in modern books, it'll be Pisces is Jupiter and Neptune. I think
Yeah.
that's what it is.
Yeah.
Right. And so I'm
Right.
like, it breaks this perfect pattern around the zodiac where it's like, you know, you have Saturn, Jupiter, and it literally is like all lined up perfectly. And you have the sun and the moon next to each other on the bottom. Then you have those other 3 planets, and now it's all.
Yeah.
So I'm
I've
like,
noticed that as well. Like Mars will relate to Aries and Scorpio, but
yeah,
you can put Scorpio with Pluto. Yeah. There's a lot of
yeah,
systems out there. Just use what works for you to do what you're trying to do, and you know, if it
yeah.
doesn't
So I
work
just
for you,
chopped those little bit. So it's fine. It works for me.
right.
But so since I got bored with only using those 7 planets, I Googled like the size of all the celestial bodies in our solar system.
Mm-hmm.
So now every planet has whatever amount of moons. Jupiter's got like 90 something moons or something it's just, they all have moons. Neptune has moons. It's so dumb.
Mm-hmm.
So I have this Excel spreadsheet, right? The size of every, and it's all sorted because that's what I do. Every like planet and moon in our system and some of the asteroids in the asteroid belt.
Kuiper Belt, yeah.
I'm not sure what it's called, but it's like there should be a planet there if you follow the way the planets are arranged. There's like the inner planets and then the outer planets.
I think it's the
And
Kuiper Belt.
it might be called the Kuiper Belt, but there's a gap,
Mm-hmm.
but it's full of all these asteroids. And I'm like,
Yeah.
that should be like a planet. And if it was, it'd be a perfect. Anyway, so I was like, back to like, if you could do that to the distance between 2 objects. So now I'm doing like the distance between the moon Io on Jupiter and Ceres over here, or our moon and the moon on Neptune, and just so done. And like, I probably shouldn't have gone down that road because it's literally like 200 different planetary objects that I could combine in different ways. And like, I'm not going to live long enough to do this. So,
I guess it's something other people can inherit, much like the music of the spheres.
you know, I'm keeping notes. So, you know, it'll be like, it'd be pretty funny though. They have Leonardo da Vinci's notebook and Shawn from Ambient Esoterica and his crazy musical ideas he never got to.
I'll put it right there on my bookshelf,
Yeah.
right between some Lon Milo Duquette and some Manly P. Hall.
He'll
So
just be the big book of ridiculous ideas for occult people.
I'd love to see it sometime. If you feel like sharing any of the pages with me, that would be any of the pages with me, that would be wonderful. Are there any films or literature or other artists? I know you mentioned Brian Eno. I love Brian Eno. But are there any other films or like literature or musical artists that you could recommend to help people who are just getting into magic and the occult to better understand what we're talking about?
You know, the one that was the most mind-blowing for me, like I had left the Freemasons, and I think the first thing after the Freemasons for me, other than like random metaphysical, like Buddhism, shamanism, psychic powers, all this whole little like woo-woo little thing, it was Poke Runyon has a video, and you can find it on YouTube. It's called The Magic of Solomon.
I love that video. I've got it downloaded on my computer.
Dude, that thing blew my. That was the first time I saw the lesser ritual of the pentagram. The first time I even heard of the Enochian calls and
Uh-huh.
ethers. It's like all in there.
It is, yeah.
Scrying with a black mirror and holding the candles.
Yep. Having the person in front of you, like
Dude,
who's doing
it's
the
all in that video. And
yeah.
like, you see this guy, like, it's like one of my dreams. He lives like, he must live up in the hills, and he has a basement that is just, it's his ritual basement. And he's got like this altar and wax and like
Yeah.
watchtowers, and like, damn.
Yeah, he
That
did
video
have
did it for
the
me.
Sigillum Dei Emet or whatever in a wax seal with the smoke, the incense smoke rising up through the holes. It's just like,
Dude.
yeah, yeah.
And like when he talks, it's like he has like this AM radio voice. Like
Yeah.
it's a very like, before there was podcasts, like when I first heard his voice, I sat there for the first part of the video going, who does he sound like? It's driving me crazy.
It reminds me of Sean Connery. They have a similar timbre. The way
It's
that
like
they
that.
project from their diaphragm is very like it just commands authority.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like the Shakespearean actor teaching you
Yeah.
the cult.
Yeah. Yeah. Or like Dom
So,
DeLuise or something. I don't know.
exactly, because he's like, he's dead serious. Like he's got like his little, it's like
His
it's in the
talisman.
80s, right? Like in the
Yeah.
late middle
I
80s.
would say late 70s, early 80s or something like that. Yeah. And
And
he's got
he's
this
just like,
giant talisman. Yeah.
he's just all in, and he's like, he's got his robe on, and he's running around his altar, and like to get, dude, I'm just like, what? This dude is.
He's
And
in
then like, and then so like from there you go, all right, I got to Google this stuff, and everything I Googled, dude, he was, boom, right on everything. It wasn't like he's making stuff up, creating his own. I mean, he has a little bit of his own twist. He has his own. I think it's the Temple of Astarte. I think that's what his
that
thing
sounds
is.
very that sounds correct to me. Yeah, and I love his master mandala. I have his master mandala on my wall because of how beautiful it creates a correspondence between all the planets, all the zodiac signs, all the Shemhamphorash, all the Goetia.
Yes.
It's just boom right there. And even if it's not correct, it's worked for me for the last 7 years very well. So
His is dialed in. There's a lot of different people who have the order of the Shemhamphorash, like either starting on Leo or Aries, and so I noticed that too. But that's not a deal breaker.
it's
But
not for me either.
even on that mandala, he's got like the offices of the demons based
Yes.
upon,
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a planetary symbol.
Mm-hmm.
So like when I was first learning, I would just look at that thing and be like, it doesn't make any sense. Like, but as you try to decipher it from the outside in, you're like, okay, this is the 12 signs.
Mm-hmm.
This is the three signs all grouped together. And you kind of like, oh,
yeah,
the triplicities and all that. And then you're like, all right, a few years go by, and you're like, YouTube is recommending you videos, and it's the Mind and Magic guy,
Oh yeah,
Xavier.
Froderick, yeah. Uh-huh.
And his logo is the mandala.
Yes. Yeah, Froderick
like,
Xavier was one of the first YouTube channels that I started watching about the occult. And he's actually the one that turned me on to the Master Mandala and Poke Runyon. Oh, nice. But yeah, it's almost like the Rosie Layman. Like when you first look at it, you're like, what is going on here?
Yes.
There is so much to it. Either that or you just ignore it because it's another cross. But if you really look at the Rosie Layman or the Rosie Cross, it's like, this is the universe. in a like 3.5 by 5 or 8.5 by 11 piece of paper, like I'm holding the universe. That's a very strange thing.
Dude, it's and it has everything in there. It's got alchemy, it's got
Yes.
astrology,
Yep.
it's got the Hebrew correspondences matched up with their colors,
Yep.
and dude, and it has a, has the elemental color systems. It just,
It's got
but
everything.
but if you're like new to the occult, what you see is this very clown colored McDonald's
Yeah.
like sign in their yard saying the playpen's open at 3 o'clock today, because it's just back to that, like,
Uh-huh.
if they would, like, I mean, people can do whatever they want, but like if they would just maybe turn those colors a little more pastel or darken the tint a little, I think they could get, or more earthy tones, the same color wheel, but that big old bright red and bright yellow and bright blue, and
It's a mystery.
it's a mystery. I mean, I get why they do it that way, because they have a lot of their what do they call it? It's the vault. I think there's another, but each slide on that vault is color mixing,
Uh-huh.
right? So
Yeah.
you have like the default plate, and then you have it with green overlaid on all of it,
Uh-huh.
and then blue.
Uh-huh.
So to do that, that is a color combo thing, and I tried messing with that.
Well, that's where the citrine, olive, russet, and black comes from. It's the
Right,
primary colors favoring one of the three colors.
right, and it's stuff like that, to where it's probably good they don't just, or it's probably good that most people don't just come out and say, like, boom, here's red and blue, and then
Mhm.
when you combine them you get purple, look, there's the
Right.
moon. Like,
Right.
they don't tell you that. You stare at that tree for whoever, and then you go, oh damn.
Uh-huh. That's why, or that's one reason why. Yeah.
And then it further goes into how they got citrine and olive. If you kind of like check it out for a little bit, you'll be like,
Mhm.
I thought we were told you can't mix those colors. Well, you kind of can. You kind of
Well, you
can.
can. You're just not supposed to in public.
They just tell you not to do it. And
Yeah.
like if anyone plays with Photoshop, and you're like, oh yeah, I'll just put it in Photoshop, and you'll combine the colors. This is where I have, like, this is fun. This is gonna be a little rage moment. It's nerdy rage.
Feel
So
free.
like when people paint, it's an RYB color wheel. It's red, yellow, blue. Photoshop and digital media is RGB, red, green, blue.
Hmm.
And so when you paint, yellow and blue do make green.
Mm-hmm.
But when Photoshop combines yellow and blue, it's a RGB color space, and it's like additive mixing or subtractive mixing. It doesn't make blue. And it was, dude, my my dream is for Photoshop to actually have paint mixing, to where when you overlap colors, it simulates paint.
Right.
It just so I figured out a way to do it on my own with an Excel spreadsheet, to where you combine the colors and you can actually create a vault with the right colors. But
Right.
they were using paint and not light. So
Yes, and that's where the magenta, cyan, and
that's what
yellow.
I'm trying to get at. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So when you're mixing light, yeah, if you do blue and green, it's going to be, what the hell is that? But
Mm-hmm.
if you're using actual paint and ink and yellow, and it'll be a color. Very brown, olivey looking, nasty color, but
Mm-hmm. So
it'll be earthy.
have you studied the Golden Dawn color systems of the like the scales, the four scales?
I'd use the queen and the queen, or
Okay.
the king and the queen.
Okay.
Um, if I don't have it backwards, I hope not. I think the queen is the colors of the Sephiroth, and the king
Yes.
scale is the basically what I'm getting at is I don't use the prince scales, because they have flex.
I love it.
And so, like, in my world of correspondence to turn color into sound, I can't have any flex. It has to be like kind of a solid color. And I probably could get there, but it's like green flecked whatever, or
Yeah,
like,
citrine flecked purple or something. Yeah.
yeah. And so I'm like, um the math and calculations I'm doing to convert colors and hues doesn't really account for like a mixture of color that is still not mixed. Like those flecks are not mixed colors. They're like
It's like percussion almost, or like a separate instrument, perhaps, is what I'm sort of hearing when I look at the flex, is like
Mm.
I don't know, like it would be almost like a synth like frequency and then like an arpeggio or a chord on top of it. I just I guess.
Yeah, or some reverb trails, you know,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's
nice
just it
little.
it it, it never ends.
No, and kind of like why I only use the 7 traditional planets. It's like that's why I don't use those other 2 scales, is because like I have all these systems already set up for these kind of colors.
Right, right. It took
Uh,
me this long to build these. I don't want to start changing them now. And that
oh,
totally makes sense.
like I can't share them online, and I probably never will. But like I have just countless spreadsheets I've made for all this stuff. Like so, then I can move forward where I can type a sentence in multiple languages now because I've done it, and it spits out all the notes on the keyboard that those words or letters spell.
Wow.
And from that, I have another sheet where I dump that into, and it automates it into MIDI data,
Right.
so I can
MIDI
type a
data. I
sentence.
love that.
It's like so I can type a sentence, export it as a MIDI file, and
Mhm.
import it into my. I use Cubase for the music. It's like Pro Tools, but it's Cubase made by Steinberg. I import the MIDI data, and it's like it prevents me from having to go by hand and be like, okay, this is an F sharp down tuned by 32 cents. It's like I just drag the file in there, and it's 10 minutes of music that is just this, you know, it's just data. But it's like I said, like
Everything is
me
data.
me creating that system is the songwriting. The
Hmm.
and whatever I dump into that system, if there's intent and it's a meaningful statement, it's gonna come out good.
Hmm.
You know, I'm not gonna put in like the new Cassandra Clare novel or something or whatever.
I'm
But
not
if
familiar
if
with their work. Sorry.
it's like a young I'm around libraries a lot. Let's just say that.
That's cool.
Um,
That's cool.
but it's like a fiction book that's stupid. It's not for me. I meant it's not for me, but I said stupid. Um, um, so like if I pour in like the Emerald tablet text into these kind of algorithms, what I create, it's just it's just going to be better than if I pour in the text from a headline on the New York Times.
Mhm.
It's
Yeah.
just because
Well,
it
it's
comes from somewhere that means something.
exactly. That's exactly what I was thinking. So I know we're getting a little bit close to time here. I apologize for running us over, but I guess suppose the last question is, do you have any plans for the near future as far as study and practice go?
I do. Um, I've been trying to do it. I don't have enough coding knowledge. I do want to kind of like leave something behind someday.
Sure.
And what I mean by that is like I'm creating a lot of these systems and these spreadsheets where you like, you put in a color code and boom, all these notes pop out, or these tunings, and like it took a lot of work and there's a lot of math involved and like how I'm chopping things up, and not I'm not trained in this stuff. So I'm learning as I go. I'm learning how to make algorithms, to where I could download a birth chart, an astrological birth chart.
Sure.
And with my spreadsheets, it turns that into MIDI data and it spits out a symphony. That I've already done. So I kind of like I created one template, and it's like the notes are literally named like rising sign, what's in Venus, Venus is in this house. And so
That's
like
cool.
they're all blanks. Depending on your chart, they become your planets. And then when I hit the little magic POW button on Excel, it spits out what all these notes are going to be. And so it's like I wrote it, for lack of to simplify it, I wrote a short symphony with every note is a template. So they're not actual notes, that's like placeholders. So like the timing is the same, the sections are the same, but depending on your birth chart, all the notes are different.
Hmm.
It's pretty sweet. It's like
I can see that. Yeah, and different like natal charts or birth charts, like it's surprising to me how many correlations that there can be between different people. And I'd be interested to see if similar people with similar natal charts respond to each other's songs similarly.
mm,
I don't know.
Yeah. Well, that's why I want to because like I know what I'm doing behind the scenes to make this stuff happen. You know, this
Mhm.
the first section is it's a 3 note ringing and melody of your sun, rising, and moon sign.
Mhm.
And it starts out with like 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, all of them at the same time. And then it does a dropping, a reverse arpeggio through the 4 worlds on the tree, depending on.
That's cool.
And so it's very like the highest octave is the highest world, and then the fourth world down,
Mhm.
boom, and then hits this note, a super low bass note that corresponds to um, your sun sign. So that's like the intro, and then the
Like
next section
that's the sound of
it
your
goes,
creation and your
yeah.
conception.
And so
Wow.
people who are born on the same day will have the same symphony. Um, but if you're like, who knows? Like, it would be an interesting experiment to have people who are married and like, here's your symphony, here's their
Yeah, that's what I
symphony, and
mean. Yeah,
then here's your symphonies combined. So like I do like I realize I could probably monetize that, but that's for me that's kind of a distraction. I make money in other ways, you know. I
sure.
don't
Yeah,
which for me that's what's good about my YouTube presence at Ambient Esoterica and like the music I make. It's not a money making thing. So
yeah.
it's keeping the art just as pure intellectual curiosity and like what would happen if, right?
Mhm.
Um so but I could picture like an app where you just put in your birth chart and it goes, do you want to download your song as a with symphonic instruments, or do you want to
Wow.
download it with 8-bit music? Do you want it to be lo-fi? Do you want to
Yeah,
have a
what
beat?
chip tunes, 8-bit birth
Yeah, you
chart
could have like
music.
a and but like I have it like in my head and I could do it manually, right? I already, but like if there's a way to automate that, dude, that's cool. You could give someone a birthday present, dude. Here's a song based upon your birth chart. Happy birthday.
That's that's a great idea. I
You know,
love
so
that.
that's one idea. Um, but it's like I read a lot of books,
Mhm.
and like I recently read a biography of Leonardo da Vinci,
Uh-huh.
and so he's famous for this notebook, and he has like page after page of just literally like figure out the angle of the sun on this certain day, or like learn how to draw the buddings of the trees on a flower, like just because he had nothing to do with his life. And so like so he's got a notebook of all these like ideas. Some of them are like impractical and not realistic, like his flying machines. But he was just like, I'm going to sit down today and design a flying machine.
Or a tank.
Nobody was, yeah, or tanks, right? Nobody was paying him. These were all just like,
Exactly.
see if I can do this. And so that famous Vitruvian man, you know, it's like the circle
Uh-huh.
guy. If you look on like the footnotes, he has ratios from like your forehead to your nose to your eyes,
Uh-huh. It's all
and
five. Yeah,
every ratio is a combination of 2 notes on the keyboard.
that's true too. Yeah. Yeah.
So like that's the project coming. It's some music based upon the ratios of the Vitruvian man. There's the title.
That's I like it. I like it. I'm looking forward to that. And I'm gonna have to check out some of the other things that we had talked about too. You brought up a lot of things that I was not aware of. So I really appreciate that. And I
I
appreciate you coming on and sharing your experience and your life with us. Maybe in the future, if you're up for it, we can have you back on, maybe in a few months or a year or something, and sort of do like a comparison of like what's changed or what's stayed the same since then.
yeah, I really appreciate it, man. That means a lot. This is um this is the first time I've been on camera as Ambient Esoterica. So you're the first, man. You broke
Awesome.
that you broke that for me, and it means a lot that you respected me and trusted me enough to be on your show. I watched a lot of your interviews over the
Oh,
last
really? Okay,
few
cool.
weeks. Like, I
Cool.
I meant to write down the names of the people, but like, dude, there's some good people on the show, and
Yeah.
I don't think I'd be the only one who'd be like, it'd be cool if we all like, dude, you're hilarious or whatever. Like, dude, you're think about this and like, or just to tell the one guy, dude, your laugh was cracking me up the whole show. I can't remember
Really?
his name, but he had like a Hawaiian shirt on.
Yeah,
Every
Uncle
time you
RS.
laughed, I think
Yeah.
he had Belial in his name. I think.
Oh, yeah, Armalus Benbilial.
Yeah.
Okay, I forgot he was wearing a Hawaiian shirt. He's such, yeah, he's such a genuine
So like
person. Yeah.
So I just been watching all these and like, your shorts, and I
Mhm.
really appreciate like how you're approaching it. You're like open door. And I hope I pass the audition, man.
Of course, yeah. This has been very enjoyable, and I'm sure that a lot of people can learn from a lot of the things that we've talked about, from Freemasonry to music. Like we've covered a pretty broad spectrum here, and yeah, like I said, I appreciate it, and I'd love to have you on in the future. And I don't want to get anyone's hopes up, but there may or may not be something in the works for some sort of roundtable type things. um, we will have to see how technology um, how technology feels about the idea.
Gotcha. Hey, that sounds good. If anybody wants to reach me, yourself included, anyone who stuck around for this whole thing and is like got a headache and they're like, dude, I need to watch this 12 times because he talked about 500 things. Um, you can go to my YouTube channel in the about. You're more than welcome to email me. Don't feel like I don't want an email. Send me an email, man. It's totally cool.
Awesome. And I'll put your channel in the description,
Thank you.
Ambient Esoterica. But yeah, have a good rest of the weekend and be safe. And yeah, I wish you well. Thank you so much again. And take care.
Thanks, Corbin. Have a nice one.
You too. Thank you. I'll talk to you later.